So the topic that I have today is flourish. And when I looked at the word flourish, I thought it's not a word that's used often, but when it is used, it has impact. And I just like the feel, the connotation of the word flourish. I think it's an excellent word. And what we'll do in the next 20 minutes or so is I'll unpack it and then allow us to take some stuff away from it. And also what I'd like to do is to challenge you to gauge your own life in terms of where you are on what I call a flourish scale. Okay, so we're going to share a few things around the word flourish. So the first thing I want to do is just put some context and meaning around flourish, and then we'll go deeper into a definition of what we mean by flourish. And then I'd like to give you some practical steps as to how you can improve this journey of flourishing. And then I'll leave you with a challenge. Okay. So this is my timeline. Those of you who've listened to me before know that this is something that I've developed over time. What you have across there is effectively time, from time eternal to eternal. Okay. And there's a point in that timeline where one is born, a very significant moment, and that doesn't happen by accident. It's a God-destined moment where we're born. And then plus minus 10 plus another 10, if we're blessed, says the Bible, we then pass from this earth. In other words, we die. And then based on the decisions we've made in that, what I call the dash, we go to one of two places. We go to heaven if we've made the correct decision, or we go to hell if we haven't made the decision to follow Christ. Okay, it's just, it sounds simple, but it is straightforward. I mean, that's what life is about. That's what the timeline is about. And then I overlay that timeline with purpose. Okay, because when God creates us, each one of us, He creates us with a specific purpose. Okay, that only we can fulfill. And Glenn, his famous saying at the back of his business cards and all over his material, Map for Life material, is we are born for a purpose, or you are born for a purpose that only you can fulfill. So it's a unique purpose. And I believe that a God who creates us for a unique purpose also then equips us together with that purpose to flourish. I cannot imagine a God giving us a purpose that is going to detract from us and that's going to not allow us to flourish. So the point I'm trying to make is that flourishing is a God-given gift. God enables us to flourish. Okay. So given that background, and that's the context that I want to look at flourish in. And there's various views of flourish. I was actually quite interested to realize as well that flourish relates to some form of writing. It's that fancy writing with a pen, with the ink and stuff like that. Flourish is got something to do with that as well. So it's actually got quite a few meanings. But that's not the meaning that I'm referring to here. Okay. And then this is fueled by passion. So pursuit of purpose is fueled by passion. And I do believe that without purpose, we do not flourish. Okay. There is a view of flourish which we'll explore later, which is what I call the world view of flourish. But that's a different view to what I'm putting forward this morning. Okay, so just a few questions that I want to ask is, what does flourish look like? And what is the opposite of flourish? So as I mentioned the word flourish, and as you saw the title flourish, what image came into your head? What sort of thoughts came into your head? Just think about that for a moment. Okay, and if you can respond, please do. When I say flourish, what let's be a little bit interactive here. It's a small team.
Flowers.
Flowers, right.
Yeah.
Great. That's in fact the most popular one, Josh.
It's very funny because the same thing.
Flowers.
This suddenly starting to be looking
to bloom.
in the color.
Yeah, excellent, eh? Now that is, in fact, as I did this research on this, that is the most popular definition or image of flourishing. And if you think about it, and you think about a plant or a flower in particular, and I'll show you, I actually have got a slide with a wonderful field of daffodils, but that's coming later. If you think about it, what it needs to flourish, right? A flower. It needs soil, it needs water, it needs sunshine, it needs inputs from multiple areas. If it doesn't get that input, it's not going to get to its completeness. It's not going to flourish. And so too with any living organism, I believe. If we're not fed with the right ingredients, we just don't flourish. So look at the flower again. If the flower gets too much heat, what happens? It whittles and it'll die. If it gets no water, it whittles and it dries. So in terms of the inputs as well, it's all around moderation of what we get into our lives that will allow us to flourish or otherwise. Okay, thanks for that, Josh. I'll show you. I've got a lovely picture of daffodils. I love daffodils, by the way. My wife thinks I'm strange, but I do love daffodils. What is the opposite of flourish? So what I mean here is, if flourishing is not there, what is there? If you're not flourishing, what are you doing? Just think about it for a while. If flourishing is this lovely growth and it's just beauty, etc., etc., what is the opposite of flourishing?
The term that comes to my mind is not usually strong. But in finance, they call depreciation, depression. But what dominates in my mind is that's the living thing. When you see it blossoming, and I'm looking for a term that you see it, creeping inward, and becoming something that is nothing.
No, I think right, because if let's be brutally honest here. If something isn't blossoming, etc., it's dying, right? That's what it's doing. So it's you're either flourishing or you're remaining stagnant, and that stagnant state will eventually end up in death. And it's a frightening thought to think about it. Is that if you're not flourishing, you're decaying, as you say, Lionel. Okay, so thanks for that. Let's just delve a little bit deeper into it, and there we go. There's my picture of, I think it was a daffodil, and if you look at that picture and you see there's so many lovely descriptive words that you can use to describe that scene. One, there's color. Two, there's a lot of greenery. I see balance there. There's high trees, there's low trees, there's a lovely field of flowers. It's nature in perfection. And where it challenged me when I looked at that picture was to say, is my life like that? Does my life have color? Does my life have balance? Do I have some tall goals or things that I'm aiming for? Do I have people around me? Or am I a lone tree somewhere in the desert, etc.? So it actually tested me in my own life to say, if that is a scene of flourishing, how does my life look when I compare it to that particular picture of flourishing? Okay. Here's another picture that depicts flourishing. There's growth, there's care, gentleness. All these nice adjectives for me describe what it is to flourish. How about this beautiful beast? God's perfect creation. And if you look at that again, there's balance, there's poise, there's strength, there's confidence. It's just amazing, God's creations. And if the same God who created that elephant in all its beauty, etc., created us, created the elephant for a purpose, created us for a purpose. I really get carried away with all these. How about getting closer to home? If you look at that picture, again, there's a few adjectives one can use to describe it. There's a family that looks content. For me, those two little kids down at the bottom there are really so significant, and they say so much. They just are so comfortable. Nothing can harm them with their appearance there. And it's also a picture of the way God sees us. and the way God cares for us. Great. Okay, there's two views around flourishing. One is a worldview, what I call a worldview, and the other is a kingdom view. And the kingdom view is the biblical view. I just call it the kingdom view because that sounds good. The worldview is what the world sees as flourishing. So if I had to ask somebody who is not a Christian and is just a hardworking, good person, not bad people, how do they see flourishing? They probably look at material stuff first and foremost, material stuff mainly being in money. But I've just made a list here that I don't want to go through in any detail, just to indicate the difference between the worldview and the kingdom view of flourishing. So the worldview looks at objectives, right? And it could be short-term objectives, it could be objectives to attain something. Kingdom view looks at longer-term purpose. Glenn spoke around purpose earlier on. I believe the worldview sets targets. So how much money do I need to make by the time I'm 21? Again, nothing wrong with that, except there's more to it than just that. Kingdom view casts vision, much broader than just how much money do I need. Worldview, self-gratifying. Kingdom view, flourishing is always community-based. So what I do is going to benefit others, and I'm going to benefit in return. Singular, all-encompassing. The next one is important for me. I believe the worldview is temporal, and kingdom view is eternal. So if you look at that timeline, what we do now and how we flourish now will take us way beyond death. Whereas the worldview is just, okay, at that point where one passes on, that's it. Worldview, selective, opportunistic, available to all. Okay, so often in the worldview of flourish, it's around who gets the opportunity to go to university, to get the better job, etc. Flourishing, in the kingdom view, anybody can flourish. And Johan made a point of that guy who walked into the courtroom that was looking all ragged, etc. By him making the statement that he made, I believe he showed signs of flourish. Suddenly you saw a different person, and it wasn't defined by the way he dressed. Okay, worldview looks at success, kingdom view looks at significance, worldview looks at quantity, kingdom view looks at quality. Okay, and the challenge that I want to leave with you at the end of this little talk is around quantity and quality. So just park that for a while, and when we get to that stage, I'll bring it up again. Sorry, am I in your way? Okay, this is a definition by a gentleman called Mark Brayley. It's called P42. It's a performance for transformation. And this is an article that I read while I researched this, and I thought, oh, this is so good that I'm going to paraphrase from there, and also then just highlight certain issues. So in this definition, Mark Brayley says, those we identify as flourishing consistently have a multi-dimensional positive experience. Okay, so it's not a one dimension. It's not just about money, for example. It's multi-dimensional. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, hang on. Map for Life is exactly that. Map for Life is not singular. It's multi-dimensional. If you look at that wheel of life, there's 8 particular areas, and what we attempt to do is to balance those 8 areas. So very much in line with Map for Life. Not necessarily in material or external criteria, I mentioned that, but it's in their inner world. Somebody mentioned something about you can't really see it, but you can feel it. Often this inner flourishing sustains them through extremely negative circumstances. So to flourish, you can actually flourish in negative circumstances, right? And nature itself can flourish through negative circumstances. So for example, when there's a foul fire, the end result of a foul fire is new growth. So the fire destroys, new growth, flourishing. I just want to pick out a few words here. He talks about a sense of meaning, that it's not just a fuzzy feeling, but a deep understanding that there is meaning to life, and that talks of purpose. I firmly believe that you cannot flourish without purpose, without a God-given purpose. Those two go hand in hand. Okay, the meaning of flourishing is bigger than the individual. It's always around community. He talks about faith, not faith in oneself, but faith in something outside of ourselves. And we as Christians know that that faith is in the God who created us, and who gives us then purpose to flourish. That last particular sentence I really love, and I'm going to read it. This flourishing seeps into the community in which I live, empowering others to flourish too. Notice that I love that word seeps. You know, it's like it just flows into it. It's not thrust on them. There's no forcefulness about it. It's just, and it's so true. You know, when you meet people who are flourishing, it's contagious. You know, you can spend 5 minutes in the company of somebody whose life is flourishing, and you get touched. You just sense it and you get touched. Okay, here are some positive, some practical things that one can do, and it's called the well-being theory by a gentleman called Martin Seligman. Seligman wrote a book called he calls it Thriving, okay? And he comes out with these five particular keys. He says, if you have positive emotion, if you are engaged, and Glenn spoke earlier in terms of alignment of being engaged, the need to be engaged. Without engagement, you cannot really have impact. And without engagement, you yourself cannot flourish. Relationships, okay, and as part of the wheel of life, one of those aspects on those 8 is relationships. Meaning, I think everybody cries out for a sense of meaning and purpose. And then accomplishment. So as you accomplish that, people see it, they're inspired by it, and they themselves are inspired. Okay. So in the definition of what is a good life, it's pleasant, engaged, meaningful, achieving, and connected, just encompassing all those 4. And if you look at that, that's not rocket science, right? It's just something that we need to apply our minds to and remind ourselves of as often as we can as we go through this life journey. Okay, as human beings, what can we affirm? We can all say yes to positive emotion. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. To more engagement. Yes to better relationships with people. Be those people our colleagues at work, our families, whoever we come across. We can say yes to more meaning in life. More to more positive accomplishment. And more to human flourishing. Because as we flourish, so do those that we touch. And we can say yes to Math for Life. And the fact that you're here shows that you have said yes to Math for Life. Because Math for Life is the tool that can take you through this journey to discover your purpose and in so doing flourish in your God-given purpose. I love this picture. Strong man. Okay, so here's your challenge. I'd like you to, as soon as you can in this week sometime, have a look at your wheel of life. I'm sure you all have wheels of life that you've completed. Have a look at your current one or start a new one if you wish. But look at it with a different set of eyes. Look at it from a qualitative as opposed to a quantitative point of view. And let me explain. So for example, in your, which is the one, social and spiritual, okay? So for spiritual, you might have sort of said, well, you know, how often do I go to church? I go to church every Sunday. I attend midweek life group or home cell. So, you know, I'm doing well there. Dump those. I don't think they're good in their own, but they don't add that much value, okay? The important thing is not how many times you go to church, but how that act of going to church impacts those that you come into contact with, right? So you could go to church every day for that matter, get out, and the first taxi driver you see, you sort of look them as though, you know, The world's coming to an end. So use a qualitative measure. How many people have you influenced by doing the things that you do? And there's another one, there's a financial one that I just want to touch on quickly. Again, it's financially, yeah, we set goals and we say we're going to earn so much. I'm going to challenge you to change that around slightly and say, given the God blessings in the form of money that I've received, how impactful have I been where it's needed most with my finances? You see what I mean? It's turning around to be qualitative. And I honestly believe that if we do that, our lives will be so much richer. Just by seeing the world with a different set of eyes. Okay, deal. Is everybody going to do that? Cool, wheel of life. And then I end with a Myles Munroe quote that Glenn loves as well, I know. The greatest tragedy in life is not death, but a life without purpose.